Hey everyone, so this is a lesson showing how I glaze and layer over the top of an initial underpainting to create a luminous moonlit sky that you see right here. All right, let's get started. All right, so first things first, obviously when you're glazing, glazing is done with primarily transparent pigments. So if you're a beginner, you're going to want to use pigments that are transparent. And how you know that is you look at the back of, it'll say transparent on the back of the paint. Indian yellow is a great transparent pigment. I've squeezed it out right here. Transparent red oxide is aptly named transparent. It's actually called transparent earth red, but the pigment's transparent red oxide. And then this is transparent orange. And we've got alizarin, which is transparent, ultramarine blue, which is transparent, Prussian blue, which is transparent, and these are all opaque. This is semi-transparent, so you can still get away with using this in a glaze. All right. You don't have to get caught up in those details, though. Just know if your paint is transparent or opaque. And you'll find out pretty quickly if you try to glaze with an opaque pigment. I'm going to demonstrate that now. I'm going to hopefully turn this nocturne into a beautiful scene here. We'll see. Or I'll risk destroying it, which is okay, because at this point it's not working. The photograph that, as you can see from the photograph over here, photograph is more engaging. And I think it's because the photograph has a lot more contrast to it. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to oil our panel out. Grab some liquid and a paper towel and just oil this baby out. Spread it around evenly. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to tone this out. I'm going to take Prussian blue, which is transparent, as you know, and just dip the tip of my brush in a little liquid. I don't want too much oil. And then I'm going to scrub and tone everything blue here up in the sky. See that? It's like a layer of stained glass. And glazing on a wood panel is so much better than glazing on canvas. If you're having issues learning how to glaze, chances are you're probably doing it on canvas. So I suggest getting ampersand, either gesso board or hardboard, and priming it yourself with gesso and practicing glazing on a surface like this, because you can get smooth glazes. On a canvas, the glaze will, if it's too thin, it'll sit in the pockmarks of the canvas grain, and you'll get that spotted pockmark look, which is, you know, for years I dealt with that and I couldn't figure out why my glazes kept looking all, you know, splotchy. And it was simply because I was trying to do it on panel or on canvas, which is a lot more difficult. See how just adding a little bit of that glaze over it, it just adds a little bit more nuance, and I can keep going with that. I start with transparent pigments. This is a little too heavy. So if it's too heavy, see how thick it is? It's too thick, and that's what I mean by heavy. What I do is I wipe my brush off, and then I just go over here with a little more liquid and thin it out more. There we go. I'm actually going to add a little bit of alizarin. You can combine transparent pigments together. So I can combine these two pigments since they're both transparent, and now I have a purple, which will help me darken the sky up here. I'm constantly wiping the brush off so that it's dry. You don't want too much fluid on your brush. And then I'm going to come back in with opaque scumbles over the glazes, which is a technique the old masters would use. Another great thing I can do is I can actually glaze with a little bit of red and even a little orange into this pool here. I can glaze and darken this cloud. It was giving me so much trouble in the first lesson. Glazing darker clouds over the top of them allows you to soften them and darken them without having to repaint the entire thing. It's a very useful tool, learning how to glaze. You can fix a lot of things and it's fun. I think I'm going to put a boat on the horizon here too. Whoop. Had a little bit too much yellow on my brush there. All right. For the water, I'm just going to drag some of this purple over. So that concludes the traditional glazing portion of this. You can't keep glazing for a long time. I mean, glazing something, if you're working on a painting, it should take no more than about 10 minutes. Because once you get the glazes up, you have to wait till they dry. You can't keep painting into the glazes with more glazes, but you can paint into the glazes with scumbles and opaque paint, which is what the old masters would do. They would take a soft brush, or a relatively beat up kind of brush for their scumbles. I'm going to use something like this. So by the way, the brush I use for my glazes is the same brushes I use for blending. My blending brushes, white nylon synthetic brushes. And for scumbling, I use my regular painting brushes. These are specifically Royal and Land Nickel Espresso brushes, Filbert size 10. All right, now from here, take some liquid and we're going to mix up a kind of warm, darker grayed down orange. So ultramarine blue, alizarin, yellow. And then Prussian maybe. Oh, now it's too blue, so I add more yellow and red into it. Now I just got a big pool of gray here and I'm going to test it out. So it's too light. I'm going to add some transparent red oxide to it actually and a little more blue. Let's try it now. Getting closer. Needs more red. It's a little too on the yellow end of the spectrum. There we go. Let's try that. All right, now I've got the brush loaded up like this, and what I'm going to do is wipe off the brush again so it's a dry brush. But remember, the surface is wet because of all the glazes I put up. So with the dry brush and the wet surface, I can scrub the paint, get a little more Prussian, cool it off. See? On this side, I want it to be a little more purple. See how I'm feathering, scumbling? So there's different opinions on what scumbling actually is. Different schools of painting have different definitions for it. Scumbling, in the way that I use it, in the way that I've learned, is both a technique and, oh, I guess it's all just a technique. Scumbling is simply using semi-transparent, so it's opaque paint, and it's being scumbled, or it's an actual technique for applying the paint where you're kind of scrubbing it in like you would with fog or Actually bring some more blue into this. Purple. Darken up the water. So you may be wondering, well, why even bother glazing if you're covering it all up with the paint? The truth is I'm not completely covering it up. I'm leaving pockets of the glaze poking through. And then what the old masters would do is they'd come again over the top of this and then glaze this layer and just keep going back and forth. Rembrandt would use his fingers and tools to push all the paint around and a trowel and whatnot. Just really getting messy and experimenting. So down here I can put some warmth. Some yellows up here. You know what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to a glaze. See how I put these yellow and the orange out? These are completely transparent. So I'm going to take these now. Whoop, see how heavy that is? It's too heavy. Way too vibrant, right? Glazes allow you to get really vibrant. It's like a layer of stained glass, as I always say. So with that, I will wipe it back. And from there, paint over it, over that glaze. Some of my best work is done this way, I just experiment. If it doesn't work out, I'll wipe it off and then I'll kind of put another glaze up and scumble into it and push the paint around. And when you guys see my work on social media, what you're seeing is all of that effort, or, you're seeing all of that effort succeed because I don't show the failures. But if you follow this channel, you see that I fail a lot. That's normal, don't be hard on yourself. You're lucky if 2 out of every 10 paintings you do is a success. That's a pretty good rate. See, isn't that interesting? The glaze poking through there. Now what I'm going to do is show you that into that glaze now, I can take white, a little touch of that same yellow that I used, Indian yellow. By the way, Williamsburg Indian yellow is an amazing pigment. It's pretty expensive, but it's well worth it. Beautiful. This cloud looks a little off right here. That's the only thing I think I need to work on. So let's try fixing this cloud. Whoops. Too brown. Can't tell if the cloud is too dark or too light. I think it looks fine. I just need to soften it, right? Like in the photograph. It's another great thing about glazes is you get that ethereal George Inness kind of quality, that mystical, because everything is kind of fuzzy when you layer this way. Wet into wet, I could also come in with a small round around this cloud and kind of highlight like light, it's being backlit. So that action that I just took, see how there's all these blended soft edges here, and now there are a few sharp edges. That's what you want to look for. I just put an art tip up about how to create mystery, in your art, and edges is what it's all about. You don't want everything to be soft. You got to have some hard edges too, All right, now I'm going to take orange here. All right, now on the water, I'm going to beef up that reflection of the moon. Just take some bright white. Increasing the contrast, I think, is the key to making this painting work and finding a better drawing. I don't like the rocks down here. So the lesson goes on beyond this point on the Patreon, but in my opinion, it didn't turn out too great. I changed the foreground down there. If you're interested in watching full-length tutorials and learning more, you can visit my Patreon, which obviously you see right there. If you're not interested in that, do me a favor and just hit the subscribe button on YouTube. I post a couple videos a month on here, or try to at least. And yeah, lots more to come in the future. Thanks.